Wonderful. Hey everyone, we're gonna get the info session started here. Hope you found yourself to the right place. This is the info session on the Find an Intentional Community online course. My name is Cynthia. I'm going to be the course instructor for this 5-week-long journey. For those of you who are looking to find a community to join, to live in. Yeah, we're gonna go over what the course is all about. And we'll have time at the end for you to ask questions about the course. And first, I'm gonna go through a little presentation to share a bit about myself, what you can expect, who the course is for. Then we'll close out of that and we'll just take all of your questions for everyone who's coming in via Zoom and also through Facebook Live. All right, so we're going to get started here. I'm gonna share just a little bit about myself and you know why I'm giving this course. So I have been very fortunate to have gotten to travel the world, visiting intentional communities. I think I visited over 100 different communities across 4 continents. So throughout the United States, Canada, Europe, parts of Central America, Africa, India. Big communities, small communities, some famous ones, some pretty obscure ones. And it's been an incredible journey. And now I'm in a position where I get to help people who also want to go on a journey, finding community, looking for places just to have an adventure or a learning experience or a place to call home. Now I'm gonna, perhaps the slide is not, okay, I'm gonna try to reload that presentation because it seems to not be working here. Just a second. Okay, sorry folks for the snafu. I'm gonna try to do that one more time. Here we go. Okay, let's see. Okay, there we go. There's the next slide. Yeah, so as I've mentioned, I've visited many intentional communities. This is a photo of Yarrow Eco Village in British Columbia, also known as Groundswell Co-housing. They have these amazing gardens backing the co-housing portion of the community, and everyone who wants to participate in the farming side of the community gets their own section of this massive farm, so it becomes this interesting mosaic of different types of agriculture. So that's one neat. And a good part of this online course is I have lots of photos to share of intentional communities around the world. So I hope it's going to be an inspiring 5 weeks for you. I've also, through my travels, gotten to participate in many organizations and move through leadership positions in different organizations that are supporting eco-villages, intentional communities, co-housings. I was a board member of the Global Eco-Village Network for about 5 years. And this is a photo of one of our board meetings at an eco-village in Italy. I've also been part of EcoLease, the European network for community-led initiatives, the Youth Eco-Village Network, NextGen, and also New Mundo, which is a network of impact centers around the world, but mostly focused in Central and South America. And now I'm working with FIC. I've been a board member for about, I want to say almost 6 years now. And I transitioned 2 years ago from the board to the staff and now get to work as one of 4 co-directors helping to guide the organization. And my role specifically is around communication, partnerships. So it's incredible because I'm constantly in contact with these intentional communities, really helping to grow and foster the network. And that aids me in my coaching work, helping people find community, because I'm in the know about which communities have openings, what's going on there. So I think this is a great position to be in and something I want to share even more broadly. This is a photo of my home, Headwaters Eco Village in Vermont. You can see that's the gardens in the summer, and this photo in the corner is more what it looks like right now. It's a great place to live. I joined about a year ago after a lot of, going on my own journey, searching for community and deciding to settle down in this spot. You can see this is my neighbor's house, and this is my house that I'm in the process of building. It'll be a passive solar home with a lot of natural materials on the inside. And this is what it looks like now. We're taking a bit of a break for the winter, but just to give you a sense of how it's coming along. So that was a bit about me and my story, and we're going to spend the rest of the time talking about this online course. And I'm going to go through a bit about the structure of the course. We're going to go through the class schedule and then open it up for questions. So to start with, I hope everyone who's tuning in knows what an intentional community is. But if you don't yet know, I want to give a definition here also to clarify what it is we're talking about when we say intentional community. So the Foundation for Intentional Community, FIC, defines an intentional community as a group of people who live together or share common facilities and who regularly associate with each other on the basis of explicit common values. So when we talk about community, we're really talking about those places that have value at the core of what they do, and there's a common understanding of what it is that's bringing that group of people together. So a lot of communities exist out there where you're living together. You could think of a retirement community, but there isn't this value, this mission, this purpose that's driving the community's existence. And so when we talk about intentional communities, we are thinking of place-based or residential communities. You can have intentional communities in online spaces, that's great. But what we're going to be talking about is places where people are choosing to live together and really create their own reality by living together. And you can see this is a photo of one of my favorite communities, La Cité Écologique in New Hampshire. This is a eco-village that started in Quebec, Canada, actually began as a summer camp for children. And the kids loved it so much, I kid you not, that they convinced the parents to buy land near where they had the summer camp and figure out how to live there year round. So the adults started different businesses. Today they are probably one of the more economically self-sufficient communities I'm aware of. And they've grown from Quebec. They still have the community there, but now also a branch in New Hampshire. So that's a fabulous place. These are some common types of intentional community. I'm not going to go into this so much today, but I just want to give you a flavor for the types of models we're going to be looking at during the course. So we have co-housing, eco-village, student co-op, shared housing, spiritual or religious communities, tiny house villages, senior communities, also communes or income sharing community, traditional or indigenous, and transition town initiatives. So we're going to be looking a lot more closely at these models, plus some other ones, and I'll be giving you examples, going into much more detail about what each one means, and helping you determine what type of community might be a good fit for you. Why intentional community? I have to talk about this. So of course, more connection, especially right now when we're going through unprecedented loneliness in the United States and around the world. Intentional community is an amazing way to get those needs met for social connection. Also, being able to share resources and thereby live more lightly on the planet. Greater resiliency, community support, being able to open your door and know your neighbor across the street and being able to rely on them for physical support, emotional support. Co-creation. I think this is one of the best aspects of getting to live in an intentional community. You're really getting to participate in this great experiment of how we can design different ways of living with each other. And fun. I think that living in community is a lot of fun. Hard work, but also a lot of fun. This is a photo of Findhorn community, which is over 50 years old and has, I think, about 600 members in Scotland, right on the coast of Scotland. And this is a photo of one of the gatherings I was at there some years ago. Beautiful spot. And I have to mention also relieving loneliness as a key reason to be helping to support more intentional communities and think about joining one. As I've mentioned, we are in this unprecedented moment of loneliness where we have an epidemic of loneliness in America. It's only getting worse. A study recently came out that 3 in 5 adults, so 61% of Americans, report that they are lonely. And we know that loneliness has some pretty serious health implications. It's associated with greater risks of heart disease, stroke, also depression, anxiety. And we know that humans have evolved to live in small social groups. This is how we are designed in terms of our psychological and physical makeup. It's something that brings us a lot of happiness and fulfillment on a deep level. And unfortunately, right now, we've gone down this path of living more in nuclear families, much more isolated. We go to our phones and social media for connection, but that doesn't really replace the need we have for actually a more authentic way of relating with each other, and that can be found through intentional community. The good news is that there are thousands of communities out there. We estimate there's anywhere between 10,000 to 30,000 intentional communities worldwide. So if you're someone who's looking for a community, you do have options, many options. And much more information I'll be sharing in the course. That was just to give you a little taste of some of the things we'll be getting into. And again, this is a photo of this time Cloth Jordan Eco Village in Ireland. You can see there they're making an art project as a community and having some fun while they do that. Okay, so now I'm going to talk a little bit about the course structure. So as we've mentioned, this is a 5-week course. We're going to start on March 11th and run through April 11th. We're going to have a 2-hour live session each week. In between those live sessions, we're going to have homework assignments. You'll each be given a forum for networking, asking questions of me and other students in between the sessions. We've essentially created this online portal for students that's a private space where you'll be able to look at course materials, stay on track with homework assignments, connect with other people, see your whole course schedule. And through this forum, we'll be able to give dedicated support to each of you as the students. So not to think that it's, just 2-hour live sessions each week. No, it's much more. And also bonus sessions each week, which I'm going to get into a little bit more later. And we have the early bird registration, which is available now, and this will be running through Saturday. You'll get 30% off the full course price. So I definitely encourage you, if you're on the fence, don't wait too long. And of course, more information as well as a scholarship application is available at ic.org/find-ic-course. So if you're tuning in via Facebook, you haven't yet been to the course page, please go check that out. And just a note on the scholarship, I do encourage folks to take advantage of that scholarship application. For our last course on starting an intentional community, we gave out about 20 full or partial scholarships. And also thank you to many of you who have been registered for this info session and also made a donation to the scholarship fund. We are committed as an organization to making sure that all of our online courses are accessible. We really want to help get this knowledge out there. So yeah, thanks for all that. And please do go to the webpage to learn more. Okay, now I'm going to talk about the class schedule. So you can see here, this is the class schedule. There's 5 classes each week. They're going to be running on a Thursday, alternating between 12 to 2 p.m. Eastern and 4 to 6 p.m. Eastern. But do not worry if you have a scheduling conflict, because we will be posting the recording of each class in the Student Learning Portal, and you'll be able to catch up with things that way. The first class is going to be on getting started, especially during COVID. I know many of the people I work with are like, well, I want to join a community, but it's a pandemic and I can't travel and visit places and no one's open. Don't worry, there are some places that are open and there are some ways that you can get the process started even right now. I'll also be talking about in this first class the pros and cons of life in community. So especially if you're someone who's not quite sure if you're a good fit, if you're really cut out for this whole community thing, I'll be talking a lot about the benefits and some of the challenges of community living and how to know really if you're a good fit for what this is. And then in the next class, we'll be giving an overview of all of the different types of intentional communities, as well as a world tour. So I'll be going through many of some of my most favorite communities that exist out there as a way to inspire you and also give you a sense for some options that might be a good candidate for you. Then we'll be looking at research tools. So a lot of different directories, not only ic.org, but other places that you can go to find out about communities, and then some key considerations when you're doing that research and selection process. The fourth class will be on contacting and visiting communities. So how do you reach out? How do you make the first visit? What are some warning signs to look out for? What are some indicators that this might be the one for you? I'm going to go through all of that. And then the last class is going to be more about what happens once you have decided that this is a place that I might want to live. What does that onboarding process for membership look like? What does it mean to move into a community and really adapt your life and lifestyle to living in a community situation? So that's the flow for the class schedules. And then in addition, each week we have bonus sessions, which are just the events that FIC has going on a more regular basis. So with guest speakers, different panelists. The first one is going to be actually a panel event on community seekers turned residents. So we've brought together a group of people who have all gone through this process of thinking about joining a community, to doing the research, making some visits, and ultimately living in one. And all of these folks have very different and very interesting stories. So I think this is the best way, if you're on that journey of finding a community, to hear stories from people who've gone through that process. We'll have our monthly Community Connect networking event. And then we have this workshop with Danielle Williams on joining an intentional community, resolving hidden obstacles that help you make the leap. So especially if you're someone who's maybe having some reservations, or even if you know what they are, you don't know what they are, Danielle's a great person to help clarify that for you. And then the last session will be a virtual open house with intentional communities. So we're assembling a panel of representatives from communities that do have openings for members right now to also continue to inform you on what the membership process looks like, and also so that you can say, okay, here's one I might want to join, and you get a virtual tour of these different communities. Okay, so big question, who is this course for? I think that this course is ideally suited to 5 different types of people. The first of which is the community curious. I like to call them community curious, or people who are really new to intentional community, maybe just dipping your toe in for the first time. Maybe you haven't ever been to a community before, maybe you're really just starting to learn about it. I think that this is a great foundational level course to give you a picture of what is out there and what is this whole world about. The second type is for those of you who are pretty serious about finding a community that's a good fit for you. I've been doing this matchmaking coaching work for some time now, and this is the course where I've put together all of the information, all the things that I usually tell people during our one-to-one sessions, and I've compiled it in a course so that it's easy for you to learn and really make some concrete steps towards joining a community, and also knowing how it is a good fit for you or not. And then for those of you who are maybe a little more on the fence, you're not sure if you're cut out for this community thing, this will give you a lot of clarity. If you're someone who can't decide between joining or starting a community, we find this is a typical situation someone's in where they're not quite sure what they want exists out there, and so maybe they should start one, but starting one's really hard and it's much easier to join, so maybe they should join. I think this is a good course to help you get clarity on if you're going to be someone who wants to join or start a community. And then if you're someone out there who has been looking for community for a while, but your search has been stalled due to the pandemic, due to not being able to travel or go visit communities, this is a great way to make progress on your search during this time in particular. So think of this as the reboot and reset you might need to continue on your search in a really productive way. Who's the course not for? This is not a course for people who want to start a community. I have not started a community. We have many people in our network who have, and some of whom are offering online courses on that. So I'm not going to be the best person to tell you about figuring out legal structures or how to buy land. That's just not my area of expertise, and I can happily direct you to other people who can support you with that. I also would say if you're someone who's already visited or lived in many intentional communities, like you visited, let's say, 6 to a dozen different communities, or you've spent a lot of time living in them, I think this course might be a little too basic for where you're at. And you might be a better fit for working with me one-to-one, especially if you've been struggling to find a community where your heart really sings. I think that you might be better served by a little bit more direct and hands-on support. And if you're not at all interested in communities, I don't know why you're here, and definitely wouldn't be a good fit for this course. but figured I'd mention that type as well. Okay, and once again, as I mentioned, my coaching and matchmaking service, you can find out more about that at cynthiatina.com. I'd be happy to connect with you. All right, well, that's all I have. I hope that was informative. And now we can use the remainder of our time together to answer questions. And I have Lauren here with us, who is going to help field some questions from the Zoom participant space and also from our Facebook live stream space. So if you do have a question, feel free to raise your hand or type your question into the chat box, and we'll be able to see it and read it out loud and get your questions answered.
So we've got Joan, you have a question?
Sure, my hand was raised automatically, I think, but I'll take this moment to ask a couple of questions I have. Just curious about the price, and then also I may be one of those people who has, a lot of communal experience, a little bit living many years ago, but I visited a handful of communities, so I just have that question about, is it the class or one-on-one work? And I'm wondering, Cynthia, if you could maybe talk a little bit more about that.
Okay, yeah, great questions. So with the early bird discount, the course is $199, and that's through this Saturday.
Okay.
And afterwards it goes up to the full price, which is $299.
Okay.
And yeah, I guess I would ask a question back to you. So hearing you've been to a handful of communities, you lived in one maybe a while back, but you're clear now that you want to find a community to join. And I'm curious if before you were kind of more visiting to scope it out, like have you been pursuing this journey of trying to find a community?
I have. I used to be part of a small group. We were going to create our own community, and that we were together a few years, and that fell apart. And I've been, doing some research and visiting some communities here in Northern California, and looking elsewhere as well. And yeah, while it might be really interesting to learn about communities in New Zealand, I'm probably not gonna want to live there. You never know, but so yeah, I'm just wondering what would be the most helpful. And I mean, I could do both. It's not. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I noticed that in searching, like looking on some of the online search forums, it's kind of overwhelming. There's so much out there, and you go and you find something, and then you and it says co-housing, and you go in there and it turns out it's an Airbnb or something, you know what I mean? It's just or they haven't had openings in decades, or you know what I mean, or something like that. Yeah.
I hear that a lot, that it is overwhelming. I think the benefit that I could offer in a one-to-one is giving you specific recommendations of communities that have openings and are stable and established. I can vouch for them, having personally been there or having friends who live there. So that's going to be the benefit of a one-to-one session. And then the online course, I think, will give you a more bigger picture sense for what is out there and how you maybe can a little more systematically go about the research process and narrowing down your selection to a handful of communities to then reach out to, contact, and start to go through their membership process. So I think the advice is going to be a little bit more general and a little bit more focused on the process by which you would go about to join a community, and less so on specifically oh yeah, Joan, this one has an opening and this one is a good fit for you, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Thank you. It sounds like I could do both, you know, and yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, thank you. I think there's something too about the searching process, you know, sort of knowing like I'm a rural community person, you know, and I want multi-generational and, you know, like, and I don't know if your course is going to cover that, like what's helpful to know about your needs around community.
Yes, definitely. Yeah,
Okay.
that's the I have a whole section on key considerations, you know, are you rural or urban? Are you gonna jive with consensus or sociocracy? Are you someone who wants shared meals every day of the week or just once a month? Like those kind of, I think, more critical criteria I'm definitely gonna go through and help you figure out what kind of community person you are, I guess.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Good questions.
Thanks, Joan. We have another question from Ruth. Ruth, if you want to go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question.
Okay. I thought I was just going to, I thought I didn't have to speak. Is what I thought, just putting it in the chat, but hello and thank you. So what is the cost of the individual session? That's a question. And usually how many sessions does one need? The other is, my husband and I are in our early 70s. Well, thank God. And what's really available? Are intergenerational communities really open to older people coming in at this time of life, as opposed to, you know, our having to go to a more senior kind of environment, which we're really not so interested in. So.
Yeah, good questions. So the cost of the hour-long one-to-one is $75. And usually we start with one session. And for many people, that is enough to get them started on their own way. And then, you know, I am available for more sessions, but most people are really good with one session. Just because then you'll get a list of potential communities, you can go and do your own research, and then after you've done some of that, maybe initial contacting, then we could have another session. So yeah, the question about, okay, I'm an older person and our communities open to having me join, especially the multi-generational ones. I guess the first thing to note is we do have a number of intentional communities in our network that are intentional communities, not the typical senior living community, that are plus 55 or geared towards older adults. So that could be something to consider. And then for multi-generational communities, I have found that definitely many communities are open to having new older members. But it is something where, you know, there are going to be extra questions around what you can contribute to the community. But not to think that all communities require you to volunteer in the garden or something like that. I think there's a variety of ways that communities are open to having people with whatever, you know, ability contribute. And yeah, and I think with that said, yeah, you'll just want to have that conversation and be ready for that conversation with the community. But I think that intentional communities are about trying to shift this mainstream culture we live in of, oh, put the older folks in the nursing home. I think intentional communities are the place where we are really trying to hold people throughout all life cycles and see the value in them and bring forward that value. So I hope that helps answer your question.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Great, thank you. We have a question in the chat here. Have you ever seen a group of neighbors already in place intentionally come together to create community with more shared values / shared stuff / shared lives?
Oh, yes, totally. Yeah, and we are not at all saying that everyone needs to up and move to an intentional community. There's a lot that can be done and is being done to create community where you are. So there's a wonderful network called the Transition Town Network. Transitiontown.org, I believe, is the website. And you can see how all of these towns across the United States and around the world are taking steps to bring in more community and also bring in more climate resiliency. So I'm especially thinking of Portland, Oregon, where they have the Village Building Convergence once a year, which is basically a conference, but like a gathering celebration on the street where people are transforming their intersections by painting these beautiful mosaics on the intersection of the street and creating a little tea house in the corner and a free book library in another corner, and bringing back this intentionality and place so that we can have vibrant communities where we live. So I love this question. And yes, there's a lot of good examples of people taking down the fences behind their house and getting to know their neighbor and reclaiming their cul-de-sac or their intersection in the city. It's a wonderful movement. Good question. And Lauren, just while you're at it, can you put Joan and Ruth back into the participants when you get the chance?
Oh yeah, you bet. We've got a question from Facebook. Carrie is asking, does this discuss integrating children or safe practices for bringing kids along? I've had a hard time finding information about this.
Yeah, that's a good question. Yes, I would say that of all the different types of people that communities are looking for, I would say they are often most strongly looking for families and people with children, because children bring a lot of joy and liveliness into communities. Not all communities, but some of them are, yeah, really wanting children to get involved. In terms of safety, I think it goes hand in hand with the safety precautions that you would want to take yourself, whether or not you have children. So I'm definitely going to be going through what warning signs I think of when I'm approaching a community, even considering joining one. There's some things you can tell by looking at the listing of the community or the community's website, and some things to look out for when you're initially contacting. So I would say like that's where it starts, much before you actually plan that visit to the place and bring your kids along. You want to make sure that the environment is going to be safe in general. So yeah, I will be talking about that. And also, because of the time we live in, I'll be talking a little bit about being safe in terms of COVID safety and making sure that you are being really respectful of whatever safety protocols a community has in place at this time in particular, so that you can make sure that you're being safe and also the community is being safe in terms of a health safety.
Great, thank you. Sort of related question from Crystal in the chat. What is the percentage of communities that have children?
Oh, I don't know that number. I'm not even sure if we have that statistic figured out. But I'm going to say it is probably the majority of communities have children. I'm thinking the only examples where a community would not have kids is if they had a specific policy, if it's a plus 55 community, for example.
Great, thank you. We have a question from Carol, and this is, how can you make up a session if you're unavailable on that time or day?
Yeah, so there won't be making up sessions, but we will have the recording up in the student learning portal. So you can go and see the recording of a session if you miss it. And if you also have questions you wanted to ask during that session, we have the discussion forum, so you can ask those questions through the discussion forum in between classes.
Thank you. All right, we have another question from Kat, and the question is, would you think there is a place in the course for someone that would be myself, who lives comfortably alone with my 3 animals, but wonders about a different environment for the next phase of my life? I am 72.5 years old, independent, working, but wondering a lot about this and have been for some time. My name is Kate, thank you. And Kate is at work, so she's unable to unmute at the moment.
Okay, yeah, thanks, Kate, for that question. And I would say that it is this course is going to give you probably what you're looking for in terms of being able to get a sense for what that different life and that different phase might be for you, give you a sense for what options are out there, how you might go through the process. So I feel you about, living comfortably now and having this curiosity about what else, could be for the future. So I think this course is going to be an excellent fit.
Wonderful, thank you. Let's see what else we have here. Wendy would like to know, are there any multi-generational communities that include continuum of care housing through end of life? In other words, that include assisted living and nursing home level of care?
Can you repeat the question one more time?
Yeah, you bet. Are there any multi-generational communities that include a continuum of care housing through end of life? In other words, that include assisted living and nursing home level of care?
Yeah, there are a few. Twin Oaks community in Virginia comes to mind especially. They actually have created these, wonderful, within the community, a wonderful housing complex for the seniors that have a little extra amenities, especially air conditioning and some other things. But I would say, Twin Oaks is an income sharing community, and this isn't a community where you could so easily join and get access to those things. If you're already needing those services, it might be a little bit more of a difficult process. I'm trying to think. Yeah, there are certainly communities that have gone through end-of-life processes with members in their community who have aged and then moved on and have been able to hold that as a community. I don't know of any communities that are have that as a specific focus or specific component, but there are certainly communities that have handled that and know how to care for elders and care through end-of-life processes. And some communities that have some really nice green burial sites too. So I know that's something some folks are often looking for.
Yeah, that's super cool. Joan has another question, and that is, if a person from the US is interested in a community outside the US, would you have to go through the regular citizenship channels in order to become a resident?
I think the question is about becoming a resident of a different country to join a community. Yes, you would if you are thinking of moving someplace full time, you would definitely need to abide by whatever customs and immigration policies that country has. I can't think of any intentional communities that are, have their own, that there are their own sovereign country. I think you still need to abide by whatever policies exist. Yeah, but to say I do help people with that, because as I've mentioned, I've visited intentional communities not only in the US, but in other places. And I'll often get people who don't want to live in a community in the US, but are a US citizen. And so I can help you think through what that might look like to join a community in a foreign country. Yeah.
Okay. Next question is from Crystal, and that question is, have some communities managed to pool health insurance?
Yes, yeah. So the Federation for Egalitarian Communities, the FEC, so our organization is the FIC, it's a little confusing, but this is a network of income sharing communities that have established for a few decades now their own health insurance. It's called PEACH. And it is a full coverage for all of the residents of the intentional communities that are part of the network. So yeah, they've created their own community health insurance. It's incredible. I think they're covering maybe over 200 people, or maybe even more, over 300 people. So fascinating.
Great. Another question we have is, do you have any plans for a group community tour? I've been to / lived in a dozen or so, but would love to see more, explore it with a group of communitarians.
Yes, great question. I actually started a travel company in early 2020 called Eco Village Tours. And we were all set to give our first tour, which was going to be of communities in Slovenia. And then COVID happened. So it's on pause. But yeah, this is one thing I'm really excited to do once we can all travel a little more easily, is bring people on tours. There are a few other more regionally specific community tours as well, and different organizations that do that. But right now they're all on pause. But yeah, unfortunately.
Great, thank you, Cynthia. That's all the questions I have right now. We have time for some more, so feel free to ask.
Yeah, it looks like we have about 10 minutes left.
Right. Joan, I see you have your hand raised.
Joan has another question.
Yeah, so go ahead, Joan.
Yeah, I'm wondering, like a list of questions to ask yourself when you're considering joining a community that would be helpful. Is there any place, that I'm sure that you'll cover that in the course, but I'm just curious to kind of get a head start. There's something like that.
Yeah, that's a good question. It is something I'm going to cover in the course. I think there are probably some community magazine issues that may have those kind of questions. So if you go to Communities Magazine, I don't know the website link off the top of my head, but it's a 40-year-old publication that is, comes out monthly, or sorry, not monthly, seasonally, and different communitarians share articles in the magazine. And so we do have an issue specifically on finding community. And actually, the Wisdom of Communities book is a compilation of some of the best articles we have. And we do have a book on finding community. And let me see if I can.
Okay.
Wisdom pull up the link and I'll put this in the chat. There it is. Okay. Okay, so there's the link for that might be a helpful resource if you're looking to get started right away.
Great. And how do we sign up for the course?
Yeah, you can just go to the website. I'll put the link in. bc.org/find course. There you go.
Great. Thank you.
bc.org/find-ic-course.
Okay, great. Thank you, Joan. Another question here is from Crystal. Do most communities give you an opportunity to stay for a mini trial period before making a decision to transition in?
Most communities have a trial period. Yeah. So most communities have a membership joining process, and it could be anywhere from, you know, a few weeks to a few months, even some communities a few years before you become a full member. So it's a little dependent on the housing availability that a community has. If they have some guest housing, most communities do, and most communities do want you to, yeah, spend some time getting to know if it's a good fit for you, and also if they feel like it's a good fit for them. So yeah.
Great, thank you. Let's see what else we have here. Tracy says, Joan's question makes me wonder if there is some kind of assessment tool to help you find the types of communities that might be a good fit for you.
So as part of the course, I have a few handouts, and some of them are like personal surveys that you can do to help you kind of more determine, yeah, what kind of community you would be a good fit for. Like, what is the you know, range of housing types or housing prices, or what is the kind of the community values or the dietary requirements that you might have. And all of that information will help you get you a good sense of what community you specifically are a good fit for, because everyone's different and every community is different, and there's some communities that you are going to be a better fit for than others. So yeah, I'm excited to share that with you. I don't think well, I know we don't have that resource specifically published on our website. It is something that I'm working on getting published, but right now all of these informations are just through the course.
Cool. So Carrie on Facebook has a question, and that is moving to a community feasible for someone without being self-employed or already well off?
Yeah. It's definitely feasible. I tell folks that there's a whole wide spectrum in terms of economic accessibility when you're thinking about joining a community. It's true, some communities are expensive. That's definitely true. And some communities you need to buy into the community and buy a home or buy some land. But there are also communities where you can rent to live there, and definitely some affordable options. Specifically, I'm thinking of Dancing Rabbit Eco Village. That's a really affordable one. Earth Haven Eco Village is a quite affordable community. And then there's some smaller ones here and there. So I think I would need to learn a little bit more about, yeah, where you're looking, what some of your other needs are. But just to know, you don't need to be a wealthy person to live in community. And in fact, if you join an income sharing community, you can get a job and health insurance and housing, but you got to be part of an income sharing community. So yeah, there's options out there for sure.
Thanks, Cynthia. The next question is from Wendy. When couples are considering community, is it common for one member of the couple to take the lead initially, or do you think it only works if both are equally involved from the beginning? I know this is a subjective question, but figured I'd throw it out there.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting because often in my work, I find that in a couple of a man and a woman, it's often the woman who's taking more initiative and like bringing her husband on board and saying, hey, we should look into this. And I think that's fine. I think it's fine if one couple does take more initiative. And there's a certain point, especially when it comes to engaging with a community, where you're both going to want to be present. If you're both going to be living there, or if your whole family is going to be living in the community, that's something you're going to want to be sure that you're both taking the tour, having the interview, making the decision together that that's where you want to be. Because in the community, that's how, it's not necessarily that you're going to be a couple, you're going to be two members who are joining, and you both need to go through that membership process completely. So yeah, initially it's fine if one of you is more excited about it and kind of bringing the other one along. And just to know, though, at a certain point, it's going to need to be a joint effort.
Okay, the next question is from Joan, and that question is there a vetting process that communities have to select residents?
Yes. Pretty much all communities have a vetting process. And if you find a community that does not have a vetting process, I would consider that a warning sign. Yeah, you want to make sure that when you are looking at a community that you're able to, very quickly see, what is their vetting process? What does the membership process look like? A lot of communities have this posted on their websites. And usually the vetting process would include some determination of if you have same values or similar values as the community, you're in alignment with the community's mission and vision, and you have something that'll be of benefit for the community. So not only to think that, oh, I'm going to join a community and I'm going to get all these benefits out of, but also to be prepared to also contribute to the community. And that's the lens that a community is going to be looking at you through. Much as you're vetting them, they're going to be vetting you for sure. Yeah. And looks like we are just about at time. Is there another question, or you think that's a wrap, Lauren?
Yeah, I'm not seeing anything in the chat or anything.
Okay, awesome. Well, that was some good questions, everyone, and thank you so much for joining. We'll put that link once again of the course into the chat, and just a reminder that the early bird discount runs through Saturday. So if you're thinking of joining, love to have you. And feel free to be in touch if you have more questions. And we'll be sending out the recording also to everyone who registered, so you can watch this again, you can share it along, and I hope to see some of you on the course. Yeah. Okay. All right, bye.
Thanks, everyone.